Well, hello friends. Welcome to week 2. My name is Jay Tea Moriarty. I'm a writer. Today I'll be talking about myself and my writing, as well as giving a brief review on Neuromancer, which is my January read. Before I begin, a special thanks to everyone who has responded positively on my social medias. I appreciate the attention and sharing my posts, and I've even sold a book since. I'm not sure how many pre-sales, but I've definitely sold one copy of the first book, so to whoever bought it, you're the best. Let me know in the comments, and well, I'll just give you a nice big hug. I'm also working to improve my videos for you. For instance, have you noticed the picture quality has dramatically improved? The lighting, instead of blurring out this half of my face, just now blurs out all of my face, because thanks Australian sun. And that is thanks to this little doohickey. I will admit I recorded the first video on my old laptop, which dates from back in the olden days, really. This video I'm recording entirely on my phone, with the stand that you just saw, and I'm trying out the headphones because the sound was so different in the last one. When I had the footage of just the books, it was with these. When it was straight on me, it was the laptop, and the sound quality was not consistent, which is no bueno. So I'm proving that. It's all here. I'm improving. And so that's why the sound was so different on the last video. Apologies. Now, on to the book. Sorry, I need a new graphics guy. I'm terrible at this. Neuromancer, written in 1984 by William Gibson. It's the introduction to cyberpunk. It's one of the very earliest, very popular cyberpunk novels out there, and it's definitely influenced a lot of everything. Have you ever played Shadowrun, the role-playing game? There you go. Blade Runner came out at very similar time, so they've influenced each other, sort of, a bit. Yeah, but if you like anything, like The Matrix is the most recent cyberpunky thing to come out. Definitely a lot of it started here. Gibson didn't aim to get into science fiction to begin with, but he loved the punk scene and was interested in, the future of technology and other stuff. In terms of writing Neuromancer, it's only 77,000 words, but he put a lot of work into it. He jammed it in. So I heard that he rewrote the first 2 parts of it about 12 times, which is a lot. I rewrote the Full Life of a Robot 7 times. He wrote the story for the style of the book itself, rather than to tell a simple story of bad guy complication resolution, which speaks a lot about the style and volume of the characters themselves. While the scene is simple, the characters are involved, the high caliber fashion everyone wears is exciting, and there's the fun of being a top runner in the cyber world. It's very real. You feel like it's happening, you feel like you're reading it. Especially the speed with which the writing moves along and the events that happen. Often I'll say I don't want a book to dilly-dally too much, or in the opposite end, I don't want it to be completely vague on its meaning, but this manages to pack a whole sentence into 7 words. I first read Neuromancer back in high school. This was also when I read 1984, and I read all Lord of the Rings. So basically, it was a huge read back then when I was getting into reading. And the more notorious a book's reputation was, the more likely I was to go and read it. And Neuromancer delivered on that front, and then some. So I read it about 20-ish years ago. What do I remember? Like, coming back to a reread, you always think, what do I remember? Is it worth rereading? Will it still be there? That's the biggest question. Is it still good, or was I just 18 and everything was amazing because I hadn't read anything? I remember it had a great fast pace, a lot of beautiful imagery of cyberspace and how it looks. Seeing it's a completely made-up area, Gibson could have made it whatever he wanted. Talking about the internal worlds within computer towers and high-velocity fight scenes and the ultra-charged atmosphere of, just the whole thing. That was 20 years ago, and I'd always loved the world that Gibson created in what is a relatively short book, being only about 77,000 words. For comparison, The Hobbit is 98,000 words, about. So how does it stand up after all this time? Well, I can't tell you definitively just yet, because I haven't read the whole thing, but I'm well into it and loving it. The flavor is as fresh as the first time I read it, and almost immediately I was back into that same alternative world where, corporations were as deadly as slugs in the street and information was the only true treasure. I do recall vaguely how the book ends, but I want to highlight the essence of the book, the actual vibe and the feel of it. There's plenty of books out there that say this has a vibe of such and such, or it's going for a feeling in sacrifice of actually being well written. There's good and bad examples. So a very good example would be Tropic of Cancer by Henry Miller. He's a bum, he's living in France, and he just goes around and has a great time, doesn't apologize for a word of it, and it goes until it finishes. It's very easy to identify that feeling and get into it, so I like that kind of vibe. On the opposite end, there is On the Road by Jack Kerouac. I completely hated that book. I read every damn word because it's on the Times 100 list I'm reading through. I hated the whole thing. It never picked up anywhere. Eventually it just stopped and I ripped it in half and gave it to my brother. Terrible vibe. I don't care about the beat scene. I care less about it having read about that book, and it's just terrible. It has nothing to do with the fact that the main bad guy, is the Dean Moriarty. Nothing to do with it. Just happens to be that the joke in the story is my last name as well. Oh well. Then there's books with the next level vibe, and that would be something like Ulysses by James Joyce. Do I have my copy handy? I'm not going to find it right now. It'll take the whole video to find the stupid thing. But that it's got such a big reputation, a big vibe. The way it's written is very different. The way it changes from narrative into stream of consciousness, the way it changes again back into just listing what happens. It's one of the most famous post-novel novels, and I think it's 100 years old next year. So if you want a free copy, go ahead and get it online because it'll be public domain at that point. All right, so the vibe, therefore, of Neuromancer. Is it still there? Did it work? Yeah, it's pretty cool. It still works today, 37 years after it was written. I think it dated quite well and as fresh as the decade it was written in, which was the 80s. They're pretty cool. I'm not biased. I'm happy to say Neuromancer feels as exciting and fun as it ever did. I keep saying fun. Neuromancer feels as exciting and real as it ever did. And even today, it's quite predictive because we still haven't got the cyberspace scape that you get shown in the book, while we do have other things that come up, while other things are completely not there. But that's true of all science fiction. It's all speculative. I mean, like 1984 is a good example. We do have surveillance and government control, but no totalitarianism. Not everywhere. Not everybody has a vid screen on their wall, but we all have this very device I'm recording on that you're probably watching on. Go Big Brother, watch everything we're doing. The vibe reminded me a lot of Ubik by Philip K. Dick. That is another one of my, I don't know, I'd say top 10. Top 10 sci-fi books, easy, top 10 books ever. Because it's got that same sort of really fun, positive vibe despite being set in what is technically a dystopian future. And if you've already read Neuromancer, then the next logical step would be Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. That is very cyberpunk. It comes, I think, 20 years after Neuromancer, but it's more of the same sort of thing, but really cool, sort of fleshed out, a little bit more on the fashion and cool kid side rather than the internal cyber world side, but there's still plenty of that. That one was designed as a graphic novel first. Couldn't get the artist, so he just wrote the graphic novel. So it's very visual, very entertaining, really good. Yeah, so in Neuromancer, the characters of Case and Molly, who are the main characters, they are very fun and engaging, while dialogue is often short and sharp. Fight scenes seem like they could actually kill a character, and I'm more than happy to feel like a complete noob that's running along with these professionals who are at the height of their game doing all this cybersecurity hacking stuff and strong arm stuff and all that. It's really fun. I really should stop going on at that point, seeing I haven't technically finished rereading it again, but I'm more than confident it will continue to stand up to its own reputation. Expect a small date in February once I have finished reading it. But yes, early impressions are that it's Neuromancer still serves. Yeah, worth the price of admission. Think of it as a dip into the ice-cold water of Alaska. Refreshing and brief, but intense. That's that. Now a bit more about myself. I've always written stories and been constantly writing something since high school. But high school is where I really began reading, as I've mentioned a million books I read at the time right now. I don't know if I did anything else. I think I played a lot of video games and they got boring. Fast forward a few years and I'd travel overseas a bit. then head into uni as a mature-aged student and get a Bachelor of Communications. That will not give you a job, but it will let you get a master's. I did my Master's of Writing via correspondence with Swinburne University of Technology down in Victoria. If you don't know where Victoria is, look up Sydney and go down. If you don't know where Sydney is, Australia, mate. And then after that, I worked on my first story, The Full Life of a Robot, which I published in 2019 with the aid of Ash Cartwright. That was when I learned all about indie publishing, and that is actually a legitimate way to make money these days. Compared to the very early 90s and the 2000s, it was more of a vanity publishing sort of thing. But since the 2010s and now the 2020s, it's a legitimate way to earn money if you do the legwork. I began working on the second book in the series, A Machine of Blood, in July of 2021. And I will have it finished by the time you hear me speak this sentence. I know, I'm excited too. The joy of returning to a series that I'd already started in. It was very exciting because the first robot, they're very limited in what they know and how they perceive the world. So I couldn't go in and give you a huge description of the city. It was literally what the robot would have written is all that I limited myself to writing. The joy of returning to my series for a second book with a character who is wide-eyed, has looked at everything, and just to embellish everything, like the cities, the places, the characters, how they look, how the last robot looked, it was so exciting to get back into it. I loved it completely. Both books are available now. If you click down below, The Full Life of a Robot is 99 cents forever, while A Machine of Blood is on special pre-sale right now for 99 cents as well throughout January. So get in before you miss that deal. Pushing them aside for a second, I've also been published in an anthology called The Magic of Fire. I don't know where I've put the graphic. Compiled by A.A. Vaughan in 2020. I will also be in the follow-up anthology When Sleeping Giants Wake. My own entry is called The Leaves of Autumn, and it's about a brave tribe of little goblins, and they have to fight off the gluttonous golden dragon Flalamon. It's a really good story. Only short, about 5,000-6,000 words each. I'm not translating that, you can just figure it out. And that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know what you thought again. Was the sound better this time? The picture? Did I ramble on the right amount, or was it like too sparse, too much? Is the screen handsome enough? I showered right before this, you know. I didn't shave, but, you know, there's only so much I'm going to do for you. Also, please hit the like button and subscribe and hit the little red bell so you get an alert every week when I post another video. Again, I would genuinely appreciate it. It would help me grow so much and get more of my things out there. And then, you know, I'll keep making videos, but I'll make them with a slightly bigger smile. Join me next week when we'll be going over the books that I started reading back in 2020. It might seem weird to be going through the list of 2022 and then 2020, but that's because I've already read these books and I don't have to make these confusing videos where I talk about a book I'm currently reading. Basically, I'm going to have to review books from this year, the month after I've read them, so I've read them. It's such a simple mistake to make, but we're all learning here. We're all having fun. We're all having fun. So the 2020 list will start next week, and I'll be talking about the year started, ended, and in the very middle had Lord of the Rings, because it was the first, last, and the 6th book I read. But it was a fantastic, fantastic trip back down fantasy lane. A wonderful visit away from planet Earth right now in these 3 years, which have all been pretty awful. I'm guessing ahead with 2022. How did I do, December Jacob? Tell me how we did in the end. Yeah. But yeah, what did I think of Fellowship of the Rings? Is it worth the reread? Never mind the initial read for anybody who hasn't read it yet. Join me next week to find out. So I'm Moriarty. What have you been reading?